Welcome to America's Premier Experts. I'm Jess Todfield, your host. David Hoines is a trial lawyer who joins me now, who's out in New York, my hometown, my area, as well as Fort Lauderdale.
Right.
Helping people, but we understand you're the go-to guy. This is why we wanted to have you here. Thank you for being here, by the way.
Well, thank you for having me.
So you're, what we keep hearing, you're the rock, you're the guy who really is battling for other people. Tell me what you do when it comes to serious injury that other people aren't thinking about.
Well, my office and myself, we've been doing this for over 25 years. And what we do is we represent people who are seriously injured on account of the carelessness of others.
Yeah.
Now, these folks find themselves with really profound problems. And these problems are more than just the injury itself and the recovery process or lack thereof, depending on the kind of injury, and of course the medical picture. But there are other really serious human difficulties that have to be dealt with. Imagine yourself, Jess, supposing that you lost the ability to earn the income that you need to support yourself and your family.
It would be disastrous.
It's
devastating. It would have a ripple effect.
It's devastating. It's not only devastating to the person himself, but to those who depend upon him for their well-being. And of course, think about the emotional trauma too, of all of a sudden going from being a responsible member of our society to somebody who's not able to fend for themselves, at least for a period of time until they get back into the fight, or sometimes they never do.
Right.
Well, let me give you an example. Perhaps that would aid. One of the cases we have in the New York office right now is a gentleman who is 37 years old, married, 2 children, ages 8 and 11. He's a construction worker, and he's performing his job on a scaffold that was carelessly constructed by others. Well, do I have to tell you what's going to happen here? The scaffold comes crashing down, him with it. He falls about 15 to 20 feet, smashes his head on the pavement, and suffers traumatic brain damage and other neurological deficits. Now, it's true that because he was on the job, we were able to acquire workers' compensation benefits for him.
Right.
But it's also true that those benefits are limited in comparison to what his earning power was before, by about 50%. Now supposing, once again, like I say, supposing your income was cut 50%, what kind of a profound consequence would that have to your family?
We would not be able to survive.
Yeah,
and if I had a brain injury, I don't even know if I could make the right decisions, or my family would know where to even start. Where do people start?
Well, one of the things you have to do in a case like that is not only look to the present, but for the future as well, because these folks require a good deal of care and attention in order to try to get them rehabilitated to the extent you can, and to recover from these types of things. For example, a life care plan has to be performed in order to, and we have to figure out how much this is going to cost and who's going to pay for it. Right.
And now, but by the way, does this typically happen after the serious injury? Does anybody think to do any of these things before?
No, because none of us want to think it's going to happen to us.
Yeah, and
that's somebody else's problem.
Yeah, and you mentioned early on that it's due to somebody else's carelessness, very likely.
Oh, no, that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is. In our justice system, if you caused your own injury, you're going to have to help yourself, because there's no other place to turn to.
Yeah.
But going back to this gentleman I was telling you about before, another feature or attribute of this kind of a claim, and most people don't realize this, but do you know that the workers' compensation insurance company gets repaid for the benefits that they paid to the injured worker from the recovery against the wrongdoer?
I had no idea, no.
Most people don't.
Right.
But that's common throughout the 50 states.
Yeah.
And it's also common with regard to other types of insurance too. So there are things like this that we deal with on a regular basis with regard to injuries of this kind. Let me give you another quick example. For example, several people in that we're handling out of the Florida office were prescribed drugs, Digitech in particular. The learned doctor prescribed 20 milligrams, for example. Well, unbeknownst to the doctor and to the patient, the pharmaceutical company made a mistake in their manufacturing of the drugs, and they were twice the volume that they should have been.
And what happened?
One died, and another one suffered very severe injuries to his internal organs as a consequence of taking it. Now, these folks
and it's so funny, I would never even think of that as an injury case. It obviously makes complete sense right now. If I were their family member, I really wouldn't even know where to start.
Well, you're right, and lots of people don't.
I would think car accident or something that's very common.
No, just to give you another example, you may have read in the paper, and I won't name the drug, but there's a drug that's been publicized quite heavily in the last few days that was prescribed for folks that have diabetes. It's now suspected, and we're doing our own investigation too, so I don't know for sure how this is going to come out. But it's now suspected that this drug, one of the detriments to it is heart failure and heart attacks, and that the drug company in their testing discovered that this was the case but didn't own up to it.
And your organization is doing an investigation? You're taking it to that level?
Oh yeah, well, we have to do that on account of every client that we represent. You know, these types of cases, as you may know, it's kind of common for lawyers who do this kind of work to undertake the expense of the case and not be compensated for your work until and unless you recover on behalf of your client. So, you know, we're pretty careful about what we do. When my clients come to me, one thing they get is just a straight shot. I don't color it one way or another. We do the very best we can to help them out, but if we can't help them out, we tell them that. And so forth.
And that's one of the things I love about this guy. He's the rock. He comes in, he tells it exactly like it is. I met you a little bit before the show, and you give it straight, and I suspect that's what you do with your clients.
Well, that's exactly what you do. And let me tell you what the bottom line is.
The bottom line?
And the bottom line is simply this, that there are three features to representing clients in this circumstances. Number one, the lawyer must have the experience for all three, and that's to understand the problems that we're dealing with. Number two, to have the sufficient legal knowledge to hold the wrongdoers accountable for what they did. And number three, have the perseverance and the dedication to perform the hard work that's necessary in order to get the job done correctly. And I can tell you that there's not an insurance company out there that's going to hand the money away. They're not in the business of doing that. So believe me when I tell you, you're going to be in for a good run, because they don't pay anything voluntarily.
Even if somebody deserves it, and it seems like all the facts are pointing that direction, if they don't get some good help, then the insurance company knows it.
That's not their business.
It's a money game for them.
It's a money game for them.
Right.
And you know, they've got thousands and thousands of policy holders and claims, right?
Yeah.
The injured person has one.
That's one.
One. So you better get it right for one time. And I can guarantee you, you can take it to the bank. If any number of those three things are absent, because the result is most likely to be not full justice, not full compensation, but rather some half-baked justice that, quite candidly, we don't want to have any part of.
Yeah, I wouldn't want somebody learning on my case. That's all I could think while you were bringing that up.
Well, you're right. You don't. You really don't.
Learn it somebody else. Not for me or my family members.
Okay, well, come to work for me and we'll teach you how to do it.
We'll teach you how to do that. Well, David Hoines, really good information. I know you have some other information on your website, am I right?
Yeah, I do, and along those lines, if any of your viewers have other legal problems that are not within that range, they can still feel free to call me. I have a toll-free number.
You'll point them in the right direction.
And I'll point them in the right direction, right. Over all these years that I've been working, believe me when I tell you, I have colleagues and contacts everywhere in America that are really top-notch lawyers with regard to addressing different types of problems. Just for example, we all know that mortgage foreclosures are going on. Well, there's a lot of people that need help with regard to that.
Yeah.
Another thing would be like if the IRS is beating on your door to collect taxes you can't pay. Well, give me a call and at least I can point you in the right direction.
And you'll point people, and I know that some of the people here before the show, they were trying to get information out of you because you are somebody who gives in that way, and I appreciate you coming here today. How can people find you?
Two ways is the easiest. Number one is my website, which is hoineslaw.com. That's HOINES law.com.
Yeah.
And my toll-free telephone number, which is 888-691-9700.
David Hoines, he's the guy with the experience. He's the rock. That's why we enjoy having him in here. Thank you for coming out here to Los Angeles today.
Happy to do it. Good meeting you.